Elon Musk. Elon Musk just stepped off stage. I just watched this entire Beast interview live. I want to go through a few of the most important things I thought about that were discussed in this beast of an interview with Elon Musk that just took place here. Okay, he talks about Tesla. He talks about Cybertruck. He talks about autonomous vehicle opportunities. He obviously speaks about Jeff Bezos, OpenAI. Those are where a lot of my focus are going to be to react to. I just want to get straight in this. Appreciate everybody joining me. Thank you for being subscribed. Obviously, usually I put all my reaction videos on the reaction channel, but this is too big. Like, Elon Musk just did this interview. This is like too big to put just on the reaction channel. This has to go on Big Dog. So appreciate y'all being here. Much love as always, and let's jump into this.
It's the interesting part. So now you've built these great companies that physically, the physics of them are enormously successful. So successful, arguably, that you have leverage over everybody else, right? Nobody else can do Starlink. Nobody else can get the rockets in space yet. Amazon and Jeff Bezos are trying, but they haven't yet.
I hope he does.
You hope he does?
Yeah. I mean, I think, but I actually agree with a lot of Jeff's motivations. I mean, I think, he's, let me put it this way. If there was a button I could press that would delete Blue Origin, I wouldn't press it.
Respect.
So I think it's good that he's spending money on making rockets too. It's just perhaps he spend more time on it, but it's up to him.
It's basically saying Jeff is not very interested in business nowadays. That man's enjoying his life in Miami with his new girlfriend or his wife. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, if they're married or not. But it's basically Elon Musk saying he needs to spend more time on it. And I think Jeff's clocked out. I'll just be honest with you guys. He's clocked out.
Nothing any of my companies have done has been to stifle competition. In fact, we've done the opposite. So at Tesla, we have open sourced our patents. Anyone can use our patents for free. How many companies do you know who've done that? Can you name one? I can't. At SpaceX, we don't use patents. So, once in a while, we'll file a patent just so some patent troll doesn't cause trouble. But we're not stopping any. We've done nothing anti-competitive. We've done nothing to stop our
I'm not suggesting you at all.
No, I just want to clarify for the audience, because some companies have done anti-competitive things. I think the strange thing, or the unusual thing about SpaceX and Tesla is that we've done things that have helped our competition. So at Tesla, we have made our supercharger system open access. We've made our charger technology available for free to the other manufacturers.
He's about to make a big statement.
The reason
no walled garden. We could have put a wall up, but instead we invited them in.
The reason I mention this, though, is because you've had this success in the...
Well, maybe that wasn't the point. There's a point in this interview where he basically says the supercharging business, and this is pretty big information, I thought. He said the supercharging business, if it was a standalone company, would be a S&P 500 type company. Like, that's a pretty big statement in itself.
Physics world. You now have these very difficult decisions that have huge impacts on the world that are not physical decisions at all. They're decisions of the mind. They're decisions that you and others have to make. And there's a question whether you should be making these decisions at all. And I think about it in the context of Starlink. Obviously, there was the report about how it's being used in Ukraine and the Russia war. There's questions.
The other product's better.
And I accept that. And maybe one day somebody else will create a better product.
Is it
So this part, they just kind of had a misunderstanding of what they were discussing. I guess you shouldn't say, like, Andrew was meaning one thing, Elon thought he was meaning something else.
How is it a bad thing to make better products than other companies?
Well, and I want
it wasn't really his point,
to the Starlink piece of it, though, because that has sort of a geopolitical ramification in terms of your power and how you think about that specific power, and then the power that the U.S. government might have either over you or not over you, the power the Chinese government might have over you or not over you, and how those things get used.
What are you suggesting?
I'm asking the question around this very idea of how these satellites are going to be used, whether you think that you should have control of them.
They never really can get on the same page here.
Let me pivot the conversation for a second.
I mean, certainly, my company's overseen by regulators, and while since SpaceX, Starlink, Tesla are overseen by cumulatively over 100 regulators, in actually more than that, a few hundred regulators, because we're in 55 countries.
It's crazy to think that.
If you sum up all the times that I had an argument with regulators, of hundreds of regulators over decades, it can sound really terrible, but they forgot to mention that there were 10 million regulations we complied with and only 5 that I disagreed with. But they listed the 5, and it sounds like, wow, this guy's a real maverick. I'm like, yeah, but what about the 10 million we complied with?
One related thing on this, the leverage of countries and things over you and regulators. X is this free speech platform. You do business in China. Lots of business in China. That's an important part of your business, I imagine.
Well, not SpaceX.
How do you think about the leverage that the Chinese have over you? And do they have leverage over you? And how do you feel about, some people would say, is it hypocritical for you to be doing business in China, or frankly in other countries as it relates to X and other things that don't follow this free speech path that you have espoused?
The best that the X platform can do is adhere to the laws of any given country. Do you think there's something more we could do than that?
I think it would be very hard, but I just wonder, given the sort of strong philosophical approach that you've been vocal about, whether you say to yourself, maybe I shouldn't be doing business in that country.
Well, first of all, Starlink and SpaceX are no business in China whatsoever. Tesla has one of 4 vehicle factories in China, and China is, a quarter of our market or something like that. So it's a quarter of the market of one company. The same is true, by the way, of all the other car companies. They also have something on that order of a quarter of their sales in China. So if that's a problem for Tesla, it's a problem for every car company.
So Elon Musk doesn't answer the question very well here. If I was in his shoes, what I would have said is I would have said something like, well, sure, we could pull out of China and not sell there, due to free speech. But then we could be potentially hurting the climate. Since Tesla entered China, there's been a huge boom in EVs, right? And Elon Musk believes EVs are a huge component of saving the environment, right? And as well as obviously Tesla's solar business as well, right? And so in getting off dirty fossil fuels. And so that's his view. And so I would have used that instead of this kind of skirting around like, well, the other guys sell in China, so why shouldn't we be able to sell in China? Because that didn't, no one that's playing on a higher level is going to really buy that answer there.
I mean, I think one has to be careful about not conflating the various companies, because I can only do things that are within the bounds of the law. I cannot do beyond that. My aspiration is to do as much good as possible and to be as productive as possible within the bounds of what is legal. More than that, I cannot do.
I want to pivot and talk about AI for a moment. We had Jensen Huang here, who's a big fan of yours, as you know.
Yeah, Jensen's awesome.
Talked about bringing you the first box, by the way,
yes.
With Ilya, interestingly enough.
Yes.
Back in 2016, I think.
There's a video of Jensen and me unpacking the first AI computer at OpenAI.
So I'm so curious what you think of what's just happened over the past 2 weeks while you were dealing with this other series of headlines. There was a whole other series of headlines
OpenAI, so far.
at OpenAI. What did you think?
Well,
you founded it, co-founded it.
Co-founded it, yeah. The whole arc of OpenAI, frankly, is a little troubling because the reason for starting OpenAI was to create a counterweight to Google and DeepMind, which at the time had 2/3 of all AI talent and basically infinite money and compute, and there was no counterweight. It was a unipolar world. And Larry and Paige and I used to be very close friends, and I would stay at his house and I would talk to Larry into the late hours of the night about AI safety. And it became apparent to me that Larry did not care about AI safety. I think perhaps the thing that gave it away was when he called me a speciesist for being pro-humanity. As in, like a racist, but for species. So I'm like, wait a second, what side are you on, Larry? And then I'm like, okay, listen, this guy's calling me a speciesist. He doesn't care about AI safety. We've got to have some counterpoint here because this seems like we could be, this is no good. So OpenAI was actually started, and it was meant to be open source. I named it OpenAI after open source. It is in fact closed source, super closed. It should be renamed super closed source for maximum profit AI. So because this is what it actually is. I mean, fate loves irony. I mean, in fact, a friend of mine has this says like the way to predict outcomes is the most ironic outcome is the most. It's like this Occam's razor, like the simplest sort of explanation is most likely. And my friend Jonah's view is that the most ironic outcome is the most likely, and that's what's happened with OpenAI. It's gone from an open source foundation, a 501c3, to suddenly it's like a $90 billion for-profit corporation with closed source. So
that is crazy.
I don't know how you go from here to there, but that seems like I don't know how you get. I don't know if is this legal. I'm like, that's legal.
I legit wonder that. I legit wonder that.
Yeah, by somebody you know, Ilya, and Ilya was a friend of yours.
Yes,
you brought him there. Your relationship with Larry Page effectively broke down over you recruiting him away. I think
that's correct. That was the fight. That was the Larry refused to be friends with me after I recruited Ilya.
And this gets good. They're about to get into if you think Sam Altman had something going there, or in terms of something that let's just call it wasn't quite right, or what was really happening here.
Here's Ilya apparently saying something is very wrong.
I think we should be concerned about this because I think Ilya actually has a strong moral compass. He thinks about he really sweats it over questions of what is right. And if Ilya felt strongly enough to want to, fire Sam, well, I think the world should know what was that reason.
Have you talked to him?
I've reached out, but he doesn't want to talk to anyone.
Have you talked to other people behind the scenes? Is this all happening?
I've talked to a lot of people. I've not found anyone who knows why. Have you?
I think we are all still trying to find out.
I mean, look, one of two things is either it was a serious thing and we should know what it is, or it was not a serious thing and then the board should resign.
What do you think of Sam Altman?
I have mixed feelings about Sam. I do, the ring of power, can corrupt. And this is the ring of power. So, I don't know. I want to know why Ilya felt so strongly as to fire Sam. This sounds like a serious thing. I don't think it was trivial. And I'm quite concerned that there's some, dangerous element of AI that they've
discovered.
Created. Yes.
You think they've discovered something?
That'll be my guess.
Where are you with your own AI efforts relative to where you think OpenAI is, where you think Google is, where you think the others are?
Okay, so that wraps up that segment. They just talk deeper about AI there.
Let me ask you a political question. And I've been trying to square this one in my head for a long time.
Yeah.
In the last 2 or 3 years, you have moved...
Basically going to ask him why he doesn't like Biden.
...decidedly to the right, I think.
Have I?
Well, we can discuss this. I think that you have been espousing and promoting a number of Republican candidates and others. You've been very frustrated with the Biden administration over, I think, unions and feeling like they did not respect what you've created.
Well, I mean, without any doing nothing to provoke the Biden administration, they held an electric vehicle summit at the White House and specifically refused to let Tesla attend. This was in the first 6 months of the administration.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's a bunch of freaking crap. Like that's crazy. That would be like having a smartphone summit and not inviting Apple to it. The president not inviting Apple, and it's like, you guys realize we sell like half the smartphones, right? And in Tesla's case, I mean, they sell more than half the actual EVs. Like that's crazy. So that's wild, man. Wild.
More electric cars than everyone else combined. Why are we not allowed? Why are you only letting Ford, GM, Chrysler, and UAW, and you're specifically disallowing us from the EV summit at the White House? We've done nothing to provoke them. Then Biden went on to add insult to injury and publicly said that GM was leading the electric car revolution. This was in the same quarter that Tesla made 300,000 electric cars and GM made 26. Does that seem fair to you?
So, but tell me this then. It doesn't seem fair. And I've asked repeatedly, you've probably seen me.
And by the way, I had a great relationship with Obama. So there was not a.
So, but then there's
I voted
this.
for Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand. Okay.
So
Man stood in line for 6 hours. That's a flex, right? That's a flex if you're Obama. You had Elon Musk waiting in line 6 hours just to shake your hand? Dang. Now that's a flex. Who's Elon Musk really waiting to meet for 6 hours? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Personal level. I can see it in your face. This hurt you personally.
And it hurt the company too. And it was an insult to, Tesla has 140,000 employees. Okay, of the half of them are in the United States. Tesla has created more manufacturing jobs than everyone else combined.
So let me ask this then. You've devoted at least the last close to 20 years of your life, if not more, to the climate change.
So then he asked about Vivek, and he's like, well, you were, hanging around Vivek or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I disagree with him on kind of his views on climate and those sorts of things. And then they ask him, would you vote for Biden or not? And he's like, I don't think I would vote for him, but he's like, I might not vote against him. That's a tough decision. Those sorts of things.
Or whatever. But it's pretty cheap. Okay. It's low cost freedom.
I got a couple more questions for you. You're headed back to Texas after this
freedom,
to launch the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big launch. But I wanted to ask you right now, more broadly, just about the car business and what you see actually happening. And specifically, the government put in place lots of policies, as you know, to try to encourage more EVs. And one of the things that's happened uniquely is you have now a lot of car companies saying, actually, this is too ambitious for us. These plans are too ambitious. 4,000 dealers, I don't know if you saw just yesterday, sent a letter to the White House saying, this has gone too far. You're going too far. You had this
anti-EV?
This is going too fast, too far, and that there's not enough demand. Underneath all of this is this idea that...
So dealers sending that letter, let me be very clear. And I've heard a lot out of kind of people that, let's call it, are in the dealership business. From what I heard is automakers are shipping them these EVs. And what's happening is the EVs aren't freaking moving. Like, people don't want these EVs from these other traditional auto manufacturers. And so the auto manufacturers are sending them these EVs to dealerships. The dealerships don't want to sell them to begin with, right? Because at the end of the day, like, the dealership looks at this and they say, like, we're not going to have much maintenance on this, and that's a huge component of how we make money over time. We don't want to sell these EVs, and the customers don't want to buy the EVs. So why are we going to force it on them? We're not going to force it on them, right? And the dealers just aren't incentivized. So I can understand the dealers being mad at this whole entire situation, because ultimately the OEMs aren't producing a vehicle that makes everybody say, I got to go buy this EV. And people are like, why would I go buy, an EV of whatever kind from Ford or GM or whoever when I could just buy an internal combustion engine vehicle and probably like it a lot more than whatever EV product they have, because maybe they haven't marketed properly. Maybe it's just not good enough product, right? It matters.
The American public
product matters.
has not bought into they bought into it with your company, but they haven't bought into it broadly enough.
Well, I think if you make a compelling electric car, people will buy it, no question about it. Electric car sales in China are gigantic. That's by far the biggest category.
Right.
And I think that would be the case, it's
something that scares me with the EV market. This happened actually in the kind of vegan food movement, right? Which I was very involved with, and just huge disappointment in that industry. What happened ultimately, I think, in that movement was you had too many companies make bad products. As somebody that was tried all the different company products, there was too many bad products in the market, too many restaurant chains selling poor product. There was a great restaurant here in Vegas called Chef Kenny's, Asian restaurant, everything was plant-based. Their food was phenomenal. I said, man, if all the other companies made food this freaking good, like vegan movement would be huge, but instead, a lot of it was garbage. The same thing could happen in the EV industry. If everybody else creates a garbage product and Tesla's the only one creating a great product in the EV space, it's gonna hurt EV adoption taking off over this next 5-10 years. You need lots of companies making great products, compelling products that make the consumer go out there and say, I want to buy this, I want to add this. If you have a bunch of companies that put out subpar products, and maybe, here's a little conspiracy theory, maybe, just maybe, the other OEMs want to put out not a great product. Because at the end of the day, their bread and butter is what? Selling internal combustion engines. So they want to slow down EV adoption as much as possible, if anything, because they know they're never going to beat Tesla at that. They know Tesla's going to win the EV war. So the game might be, let's slow down things as much as possible. Just a little conspiracy theory. Right? Some little food for thought there.
Okay, so probably the best refutation of that is that the Tesla Model Y will be the best-selling car of any kind on Earth this year.
Big statement.
Of any kind, gasoline or otherwise.
Is there another car company that you think is doing a good job with EVs?
I think the Chinese car companies are extremely competitive. By far, our toughest competition is in China. So,
truth.
There's a lot of people who out there who think like the top 10 car companies are going to be Tesla, followed by 9 Chinese car companies. I think they might not be wrong. So
I agree with that, by the way.
China is super good at manufacturing, and the work ethic is incredible. So, if we consider different leagues of competitiveness at Tesla, we consider the Chinese league to be the most competitive. And by the way, we do very well in China because our China team is the best China.
How worried are you that the unionization effort that just took place I shouldn't say effort, but the new wages and the like at GM and Ford that they're coming for you? And they are coming for you. What is that going to mean to you and your business?
Well, I think it's generally not good to have an adversarial relationship between people on the line, one group at the company and another group. In fact, I disagree with the idea of unions, but perhaps for a reason that is different than people may expect, which is I just don't like anything which creates kind of a lords and peasants sort of thing. And I think the unions naturally try to create negativity in a company and create a sort of lords and peasants situation. There are many people at Tesla who have gone from working on the line to being in senior management. There is no lords and peasants. Everyone eats at the same table. Everyone parks in the same parking lot. At GM, there's a special elevator only for senior executives. We have no such thing at Tesla. And the thing is that I actually know the people on the line because I worked on the line, and I walked the line, and I slept in the factory, and I worked beside them. So I'm no stranger to them. And there are actually many times where I've said, well, can't we just hold a union vote? But apparently a company is not allowed to hold a union vote. So it has to be somehow called for, but the unions can't do it. So I said, well, let's just hold a vote and see what happens. The actual problem is the opposite. It's not that people are trapped at Tesla building cars. The challenge is how do we retain great people to do the hard work of building cars when they have like 6 other opportunities that they can do that are easier. That's the actual difficulty, is that building cars is hard work and there are much easier jobs. And I just want to say that I'm incredibly appreciative of those who build cars, and they know it. So there's I don't know, maybe there will be unionized. If I say, like, if Tesla gets unionized, it will be because we deserve it and we failed in some way. But we certainly try hard to, ensure the prosperity of everyone. We give everyone stock options. We've made many people who are just working the line, who didn't even know what stocks were, we've made them millionaires. So
it's true.
We're going to run out of time. Final couple quick questions.
It's true, 100%.
When do you have the time?
Yeah, they asked him, when he has the time to tweet and all those sorts of things. And he actually checks his phone to see how much he uses X. But the problem is he just got a new phone, so it didn't have an accurate time, which that would have been fun. And then they asked him about autonomous driving, the technology Tesla has, and obviously Tesla, Elon has very good things to say about that, and that it's very close and those sorts of things, which doesn't come as a surprise, as he said that many times. But, in all seriousness, like, I've known so many people, especially in the private stock group over time, that I've seen, like, they worked at Tesla, and their net worth's like $500,000, $1 million, multi-million dollars, and they didn't work at super high up positions. Like, not super high up positions, but they made so much on Tesla stock over the years because of those stock options that it's funny because I spoke to a lot of them, and this was, years ago, even back in like 2018, 2019, and asking them, like, do you feel like you're fairly paid? And almost all of them would always say they felt underpaid as far as a pure salary. But yet they all got filthy rich for the most part. Like, everybody I know at least got filthy rich because Tesla stock went up so much and because there's stock options. So that's where it really comes down to, like, would you rather make a couple extra dollars an hour, or would you rather make a fortune from your stock, right? And it's kind of like, would you rather have the money now or the money later? Would you rather have delayed gratification, or would you rather have the gratification right now? You look at Ford, look at GM stock. Those stocks haven't done anything for like a long time, like 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years, like the longest time, right? GM's even gone bankrupt in the past, right? Whereas Tesla's out there and obviously put up the results, and look at Tesla's stock return since that company went public. It's astronomically high. Look at Tesla stock over the past 10 years. Look at Ford stock in the past 10 years. Look at GM stock in the past 10 years, right? And you ask, where would you rather have worked? Everybody would have rather worked at Tesla, right? And that's why they have a lot of job opportunities as well, okay? Appreciate everybody joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. I'm glad Elon Musk did that interview today. I thought it was really interesting. I'll be likely live streaming the Cybertruck event tomorrow, probably on Twitch. Other than that, guys, appreciate you joining me. Much love as always. Looking to apply, join my private group. Check out the description area, and also have workshops down in the description area as well. Those are absolutely free. So much love and have a great day.